There is the potential to see something very legendary and cinematic happen to end this season. As a lot of you may know, the Oregon Ducks are one of the favorites to win the national championship, but this just hasn't been an overnight success for Dan Lanning. He started his head coaching career at Oregon in 2022, where they got dismantled by Georgia at home 49-3. And the head coach for that Georgia team that absolutely dominated Oregon in Dan Lanning's first game at Oregon was Kirby Smart. And Kirby Smart is someone Dan Lanning is very familiar with because in his time at Georgia, he was a defensive coordinator and he helped that Georgia team win a national title in 2022. So he knows Kirby Smart very well and he was a part of that elite coaching staff. Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart both come from the same coaching tree, being Nick Saban. Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart both have excellent backgrounds and they have both came a long way in their coaching journey. But in 2024 or 2025, I guess I should say, Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart are just a couple of games away from meeting again. There's definitely the potential for their paths to meet again, and it's very likely that it could happen in the 2025 National Championship game, and it would just be cinematic. Oregon might just be destined to meet Georgia in the National Championship game. Knowing how it all started with Dan Lanning will be looking for his revenge if he plays this Georgia team. Dan Lanning has absolutely built this team into a dominant team and a force to be reckoned with. And could you imagine them winning the 2025 National Championship by beating the team that took them down in 2022? It would be so poetic to see Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks take down the team that dominated them in Dan Lanning's first game at Oregon. It's one thing for this game to be played in the regular season, but these two coaches meeting in the national championship would have so much storylines and so much stakes. It would be very similar to that national championship game a few years back between Georgia and Alabama, Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. Everything might just come full circle for Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, and it would be an even bigger statement knowing that they are playing that national championship game in Atlanta, Georgia, which is basically Georgia's territory. Oregon winning a national championship regardless of who they play would be epic to see, but Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks beating Georgia in the national championship would just be epic and poetic.